Well, hello there, and welcome to Spiritual How-Tos. This is the place where we're going to share with you brief Bible basics on how you can please the Lord. In fact, this is our 11th session, our 11th in the series of how to please the Lord. And so I'd encourage you to go back and look at the other lessons if you haven't seen them and are interested, or if you need a refresher course, they're there for you. They're located at underdeborahspalm.com. On the YouTube or on the website. So they're there for you at any time, as well as some printed notes. But that's enough commercial. How about moving on to today's lesson? The topic for today is give him your body. Your body. Give him your body. And our key verse is Romans 12, verses 1 and 2. And I'm going to read that from the NLT. Romans chapter 12, verses 1 and 2 says this. And so, dear friends and brothers and sisters, I plead with you to give your bodies to God because of all He has done for you. Let them be a living and holy sacrifice, the kind He will find acceptable. This is truly the way to worship Him. Verse 2, don't copy the behavior and customs of this world, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. Then you will learn to know God's will for you, which is good and pleasing and perfect. Romans 12, 1 and 2 is kind of a whole paradigm for how we can please the Lord and how we can respond to His grace to us. Romans 12. And he says quite clearly, he meaning Paul, the writer of the book of Romans, he says, give him your body. You see, our whole body belongs to the Lord, not just our soul and our spirit, but our whole body. And I like what Paul says, because he says, because of what God has done for you, we give ourselves to Him, a living, holy sacrifice. It's interesting, not a dead sacrifice, not a dead body like the Old Testament folks had to give. They gave their sacrifices of dead birds and dead animals. God says, no, I want your living body. Debbie, I want your whole body alive. Well, a living sacrifice is what God finds acceptable. And when I thought about that, I immediately remembered Cain and Abel, because there's a phrase in Genesis chapter 4 when it's talking about the first two brothers, Cain and Abel. It says that Cain and Abel brought sacrifices to the Lord. And I thought, oh, I remember the story. The Bible says that Cain offered crops to the Lord, and Abel, his brother, offered flocks to the Lord. Now, they both offered something to the Lord, but it says that Cain's sacrifice was not accepted. But Abel's sacrifice was accepted. And it had always puzzled me, and I think it's puzzled a lot of us. God, do you have favorites? Well, if we take what we just read in Romans 12 and we apply it to Genesis 4, which offered a living sacrifice? Abel did. He offered living. He took his flocks. Yes, he killed the flock to offer it, but he took something living and he offered it. And it's interesting to notice that Cain, it says, was dejected and angry. And so God shows up and talks to Cain in that situation of, "Guy, my sacrifice wasn't accepted." And God said, "Hey, Cain, wait. If you do what's right, won't you be accepted?" Sin is eager to control you, he says, but you must subdue and master it. And again, that seems oddly placed too, but nonetheless, it's there. There's some parallels, and we'll draw them in just a second, but I want to read and remind you of one other verse in Hebrews 11 about these two brothers, because it really tells us why God accepted Abel's sacrifice and not Cain's. It says that Abel offered his sacrifice in faith. In faith. There was faith in him that said, Jehovah, I'm going to give you this. as a living sacrifice of my dedication to you. Okay, got it. Well, in similar fashion, Romans verse 2 says, don't copy the behavior of the world. Be not conformed to the world. Well, that kind of parallels with what God said to Cain. He says, if you do what's right, won't you be accepted? And here in Romans, Paul's saying, hey, if you copy the behavior of the world, will I accept you? No, God's saying, don't copy the behavior of the world, then I'll accept you. Interesting. How does that happen? How does he accept us? He accepts us by letting God transform us. He said, don't be conformed to the world, but be transformed, be changed. That being changed corresponds with Genesis 4, where God told Cain, you look at sin wants to have you, but you got to master it, you got to subdue it. And so here we find that when we allow God to transform us, we're learning to say no to sin. We're learning to master sin. We're learning to subdue sin. And that is what God accepts. That is the offering that God accepts. Plus, it teaches us, Romans tells us, what God's will is. It teaches us what pleases Him. So as we offer our bodies to God, as you offer your body right there, sitting, standing, wherever you are, whatever it looks like, whatever size and shape it's in, it doesn't matter. If you offer it to Him, that's evidence of you doing what's right. And God is pleased with that offering. And we offer our body in faith. Sometimes we go, God, I don't even know why you want my body, but here it is. I give you my body. And then we allow God to transform us. And that right there, my friend, is a gift that God approves of and God accepts, is your body. Well, let's talk a little bit more about that body of yours, that body of mine. It's a physical body, isn't it? It's very physical. It's actual. It's concrete. It's something substantive. It's not just an idea, okay? But it is something physical that we present to God, that we dedicate to God, that we use for Him. It is something tangible. It's the whole enchilada, all of us, the whole body, and the soul and the spirit. Well, that includes our five senses, doesn't it? Of course it does. Our five senses, our sight, our sound, sound, hearing, taste, smell, and touch. All of those five senses are part of our body systems. And we take those five senses and we offer those five senses as they are to the Lord as well. They are alive, they're pulsating, they have cravings, they have desires, don't they? Don't you have desires and cravings? You know, your senses, your hunger, your appetites. Those are things that we literally take when we offer Him our body and we say, God, I'm giving it to you. My whole five senses, all of it, I'm giving to you. That is evidence of your devotion to God. It's tangible, concrete evidence of your faith in God. And it can be, depending on the choices that we make, an acceptable living offering, sacrifice for the Lord. You see, we have choices that involve putting to death everything that's earthly in us, don't we? That's what Colossians tells us. Put to death the earthly things in your body, Debbie. Paul says, I am crucified with Christ. In other words, those earthly desires, those earthly appetites, those physical desires that are not pleasing to the Lord, I put those to death. They are crucified on the cross, just like Jesus was. Yet, it's not I who's dying, I am alive and Christ is living in me. Right? He's now living in me, but the desires that don't please Him, that are earthly, carnal, secular, fleshly desires, are what I'm learning to subdue and to master, just like God told Cain. I want you to think about what John had to say when he said, I must increase. he said, I must decrease, but you must increase. You see, there comes that part of pleasing the Lord where he increases inside of us. As we learn to love him and as we yield to him and we turn our desires and our hopes and our dreams over to him, we kill the appetites of the flesh, then we're learning to please him. His will is being done in our life, and we are being pleased too. Proverbs tells us that the lovers of God, that God satisfies their desires. So it's not like we're losing our desires at all. We're just kind of transforming our desires from what we think we like to the true desire that God put in us that he will fulfill. But it's those things, the God-placed things, that need to increase in us. Christ grows in us. Christ increases in us. And our own desires should fade away. Our own appetites, our own fleshly pursuits should be killed, should be crucified. Think for a moment, if you will, of gluttony or alcoholism or drugs or porn. Those are things that our body does, right? That's things that we do with our body. Those are things we put into our body. And all of our appetites, you see, the taste, the smell, the touch, all of our appetites, then we have to learn to submit them, to give them willingly to the Lord. Food, drink, pleasures. We learn to give those appetites, because when we're wanting to please him, the choices we make with our body affect whether or not we're pleasing him, whether or not he's increasing, or are we really increasing. Let me share just a brief experience that I had just last month. I made a decision. I took very seriously that John 3:30 verse that says he must increase and I must decrease. And I realized there were so many areas in my life that it was really I. And I realized, man, I don't think he's increasing. I think I'm increasing. And so what I did is I decided, me and God, I wasn't going to do a fast. A fast is when you go without food and you spend your time seeking God and he becomes everything to you. I've done that, and there's a place for that. But this, I called this for me my 10-day self-cleanse. And it was for me, I set aside 10 days where I was going to seriously say no to myself, meaning the things that I wanted to do, I wasn't going to do them. The things that brought me pleasure, whether it was having a glass of wine at night or going down to the boat, I wasn't going to do them. I was not going to fulfill the I in my life. Now, I chose to do that for 10 days. And my purpose was to crucify my flesh. That's because, man, I needed work, and I still need work. But I think what the Lord is looking for, whether you do that or you fast or whatever it is you do, it starts with that faith, this desire to say, God, I just want to please you. Here's my body. The things I do with my body, I want them to be pleasing to you. So again, that's what this video series is about. This lesson is about, is pleasing God with our bodies. Now, going on in Romans 12, verse 2 says, don't be conformed to this world. That means don't copy the behavior of the world, but be transformed. Well, when we're conformed to the world, that word actually means to be pressed, to be fashioned, to be twisted together with the world. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to realize every single arena of our life is influenced today by the world, isn't it? Our mind, our body. There's things pressing in on us, seeking to have us, as God told Cain. They want to have you, but you got to master them. We see commercials, we see movies, we see videos, we see practices, we see things we want to purchase, things we want to own, things we want to do. And it's all about us. It's all about self, 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 self. That's being conformed to the pattern of this world. In fact, it's being twisted together with the world. That, my friend, does not please the Lord. So he says, don't copy the behavior of the world, but instead be transformed. That means change your thinking, change your fashion of thinking, change your place. It means an actual change, literal change of place, and let Christ be formed in you. See, God wants to be formed in us. He wants to fashion our thoughts. He wants to fashion us to His will, to His kingdom standards, and not the world. I think it's cool that in Galatians it says, let Christ be formed in you. He is being formed. He might just be an embryo in us, but He's going to grow to full maturity in us as we learn to not copy the world, but to be transformed. You see, you've probably learned the same thing that I have, that God changes our lives by changing our minds. He changes our minds about things. He changes our minds about priorities. He transforms us and makes us a new creature, one like Him. And we begin to see things differently, don't we? You know, there's certain movies I cannot watch anymore. I can't. When they come on and they get to it and I went, oh nope, we can't watch that. It's just in my heart, I can't watch it anymore. I used to be able to watch it. I can't watch it anymore, right? There's certain TV shows that when certain things, I can't, I turn it off. Because He's changing the way I'm seeing things. He's changing me. He's transforming me. Thank you, He hasn't given up, Jesus. Thank you, you haven't given up on me, right? But that's what He wants to do. You see, when Christ lives in my body, then I am aware of what my eyes see, what I watch, what I see, what I put in my view, my senses, my eyes. I'm aware. When Christ lives in my body, I'm aware of my ears. I'm aware of what I listen to. I'm aware of what I allow. When Christ lives in my body, I'm aware of the things I smell. That means the things I discern, the things I sense, what my intuition is telling me. I'm very much aware, and I got to listen to that when Christ is living in my body. When Christ is living in my body, I'm aware of my mouth, the things that I say, right? Aren't you? Sure. The things that I sing, the things that I feed on, the things that I eat and that I drink, and the things that I praise. If Christ is living in my body, I'm aware of what comes out of my mouth and what I'm allowing. And if Christ lives in my body, I'm aware of my hands. I'm aware of my touch. I'm aware of the things that I do and how I use my energies. And that's what's pleasing to Him, is using those choices. My choices reflect my faith and my dedication to Him, and are met by His approval in those situations. You see, I learn God's good and God's pleasing and God's perfect will for me as I choose to please Him with my body. With my body. There's one more wonderful thing about this body thing, and that is, as I walk in faith, just like Abel did, as I walk in faith with a desire to really want to please the Lord, my failures are totally covered by His mercies. There's times that I don't measure up. With my body, I do wrong things. I make wrong choices. How about you? That's why Romans 12:1 starts with, because of the mercies of God. So when you fail, when I fail with the choices I make with my body, I am still met with His mercies. His mercies. It's His mercies that meet me in my choice of faith to give Him my body. But there's another thing too I want to just conclude with here with that thought in our body. We got to be careful that we're walking in our own faith and not fall prey to judging other people. It's so easy to judge someone for what they did with their body, or what they're doing with their body, or how they're treating their body. Romans 14 is real clear about you cannot judge someone else's situation. You just can't do it. I cannot do it. So whether we're talking about our weight, or our appetites, or our viewing practices, or our hobbies, or our recreational pleasures, or our private habits, We can't be judgmental. We got to walk in our own faith, and we got to evaluate, my friend, are we using our body to please God? Remember, it's because of His mercy and it's because of what He's done for us that we present our bodies to Him daily. A living, breathing, screaming sacrifice with all of its appetites, with all of its senses, with all of its desires, with all of its energies. But in doing so, when I do that, I'm showing evidence of my faith in His ability to transform me, to change me. And so that pleases God. And it shows me His good and perfect will for my life. We can do it. You can do it. I just want you to know on the notes, there's a whole mess of Bible verses that I didn't even touch here that you can study on your own if this has interested you. Click the like button, click the subscribe button, pass it on. I'd love to have you continue to follow with us on how you can please the Lord. Thanks for checking in. See you next time.